Well, hello everybody out there in Atlanta as the plane flies overhead. Welcome to another exciting episode of Topher's Log. All has been revealed, including my face. Decided to freshen things up a little bit. The powers that be have finally opened whatever vault they keep all their secrets in and have unleashed it upon the masses. So all the impatient people can breathe a sigh of relief. I know we're getting close. Everyone was getting scared. Oh my God, not everything has been revealed. We've only had 4 houses. What the hell is going on? It's here. Everything is here. So we're going to try to keep this as short as possible. I am going to go through my hype lists. As I go through the hype lists, whatever has already been announced, I'm not going to sort of dwell on for too much. We're going to talk a lot more about the stuff that was announced today, all the original content, the rest of the stuff that's been announced. So I think I should get right off the bat now. I am extraordinarily excited for the possibilities for this year. I've said it before this year. I did get insider information, or the little birdies did talk to me the last 8 months or so, 9 months or so, whatever. And I did not give my secrets away. I know other people have, and people have been following other people, and so on and so forth. I just decided I was going to keep everything close to my vest, much to the anger of some people who try to get information from me every year. I just would not share anything. So I've been hearing a lot about this stuff, and I've been hearing a lot about the set design, the costumes, and all that stuff, and what exactly they're going for. I think it's no secret now that they're leaning heavily into sort of Halloween itself. Given it's the 31st year, Halloween falls on October 31st. So on and so forth. So they're kind of leaning into that whole vibe this year, which I really kind of like and enjoy. And just like I said, what I'm hearing about this stuff is very cool and has me very excited. This is if they're able to pull off some of the stuff that I'm being told, this has the potential to be one of the best years Hornets has ever done. So I'm excited. I think you all should be excited. I cannot wait to finally see some of this stuff. Especially some of the more elaborate houses and stuff like that. I'm very giddy about the possibilities that could occur for this year's Halloween Horror Nights. So let's talk a little bit about the video. They did release, their video, to sort of reveal all, even though a lot of it really kind of wasn't reveal all. There was a lot of glimpses of things, and really the only house reveal that was kind of in that was the weekend, which we already saw, but it sort of tied into everything else. And then other things kind of got shuffled around, like the girl with the Halloween announcement video. She wasn't in her home. She was at the event itself, and she kind of runs into Michael Myers and those other little things here and there. The guy who was coming out of the Universal Monsters movie gets kind of killed by something that we don't see, so on and so forth. I do really like their cinematic videos that they do. I just think that they're really interesting, and they kind of add another flavor to their announcement videos. So I do enjoy the video. I did enjoy the announcement videos that we've had previously more. Like I said, the selfie girl and all that stuff, I thought that kind of worked a little bit better. In this context, I don't think it kind of works as well as I wanted it to. It is what it is, but I do like the video regardless. So that is out there. So let's move on. Let's actually get to the hype list, and let's talk a little bit more about what was announced today. As far as the house hype list goes, when we get to the things that have already been announced, I'm not going to dwell on those. I've already talked about those. We're going to talk more in detail about the stuff that was announced today. Let's start off with the shows. I'm not as enamored with the shows. I'm not really a show person, so whether it's Bill and Ted or whatever, it is what it is. If the shows are good, the shows are good. It's not. I don't rush to the shows, so it's not something that I'm kind of drawn to. But Halloween Nightmare Fuel Wildfire, to be specific, that is coming this year, as well as a new Lagoon show, Ghoulish, A Halloween Tale. Now this one I am looking forward to, because it does sound different than the other Lagoon shows that we've had so far. The Marathon of Mayhem shows, those were kind of more focused on showcasing the the IPs for the year. This doesn't sound like that is what it's going to be. So I'm very interested to sort of gander at what they have planned here. Halloween Nightmare Fuel, I saw it once last year. I kind of stayed away from the shows, specifically Halloween Nightmare Fuel, because of COVID. So I only saw it once, and then whatever else I saw on the internet. It was fine. I'll probably see it once again this year. And probably see the Marathon of Mayhem show at least once or twice this year. So let's get to the hype list. Now we're going to start like we do every year, starting at the bottom and sort of working our way up to the top. Now, like I alluded to before, I am very excited for the content this year. So whether something ends up at the bottom, it doesn't matter because I am excited for basically everything this year. There's just elements that I have more interest in for other things that might be above something than something that is at the bottom. So, but I am very excited about the content. Scare Zone's a little bit different story, but the house content, I am excited for basically everything that is coming to the event this year, with little exceptions here and there. So let's start at the bottom. So number 10, coming in number 10, The Horrors of Blumhouse. Now I know people can be like, it's Blumhouse, whatever, but that's not why it's at the bottom. There's just other things that I'm more excited, more elements for other houses that I'm more excited to come than The Horrors of Blumhouse. I love Freaky. I've said it before. Have not yet seen The Black Phone. I know it's recently been put on Peacock, so you can go ahead and watch that if you do have Peacock, which I will be doing here shortly, so I can watch The Black Phone before I go to the event. So it is what it is. But The Horrors of Blumhouse coming in at number 10. Like I said, I love Freaky, so I'm excited to see what they do with that in the house. Coming in at number 9, probably going to get me into some trouble with some people, but it's going to be The Weeknd After Hours Nightmare. I said it in the video when the house was announced. I'm just not as familiar with The Weeknd. I'm not as I'm not built-in fan of The Weeknd. So I'm kind of indifferent. I'm kind of indifferent to the stuff. I am curious about what they're going to do in here. I have heard some things about what the house kind of looks like and what's going on. So I'm not as enamored with what's in here, but it is what it is. So The Weeknd After Hours Nightmare comes in at number 9. So coming in at number 8, Spirits of the Coven. I find it very interesting. Last year, if you followed me, I did my sort of fantasy Halloween Horror Nights. I started it in 2020. I finished it in 2021. My sort of fantasy Halloween Horror Nights. We sort of did announcements and created an entire event from scratch. I had a house centered around witches called The Witching Hour, which was about a coven of witches that lived in like this suburban neighborhood that inadvertently opened a portal to hell. I do find it funny that since I've announced that stuff, like 2 of the things that were in my fantasy event last year are coming to this event. We have a couple of witches things coming, and also a bug house, which I find very interesting. But anyway, regardless, Spirits of the Coven is a sort of a take on speakeasies that involve witches turning human beings into witches' brews, which I find kind of hilarious. I'm very curious to see, the whole idea of like these flapper 1920s sort of witches is something that I don't think we've seen before, or at least I can't recall anything that sort of has that vibe to it. So I'm very interested in that. The aesthetics, like I said, I've heard some things about this, so I'm curious about the aesthetics here. Overall, the concept does seem a little bit bland to me. It's just kind of, we're being turned into this witch's brew thing. And then there's sort of, bringing us to other speakeasies, I guess, around the world or the United States, whatever. So Spirits of the Coven, the Witch's Speakeasy. Coming in at number 7, Descendants of Destruction. Now, I think this was the one that a lot of people sort of thought was maybe a sequel to Seeds of Destruction. Kind of has the same sort of sound when you say the name, but we now know that it's I guess one can. It's not said to be a sequel to Seeds of Destruction, Seeds of Extinction, not Seeds of Destruction, Seeds of Extinction, but it does kind of have a little bit of that same vibe. Although this seems a little bit more to me like a I'm going to throw out the Time Machine there, where it's about this extinction level event, had human beings sort of go underground, and the way that it's being described is that this thing is going to be in like 3 parts, where you see the human beings that have gone underground sort of evolve into these hideous creatures. So it kind of reminds me of like the Morlocks from the Time Machine. just set in a New York subway, which I kind of find interesting. This sort of evolutionary measure that they're sort of throwing into the house, I think is kind of cool as well. I'm just, it just sounds cool. It sounds like, like I said, the Morlocks, maybe a Chud situation going on a little bit. So that kind of has some cool vibes. I believe this is the one where they talk about like the bioluminescence stuff happening at the end. Again, there's another plane, talking about like the whole evolution of the human beings under the ground there. I think that's a very interesting sort of concept as well. So Descendants of Destruction. So coming in that's number 7. Coming in at number 6 is going to be Fiesta de Chupacabras. Now I went back and forth on like the next sort of 6 through 1 here. I'm very excited for the Chupacabras because obviously we were supposed to have a Chupacabra house in the year of our Lord 2012. But we all know the lore now. They were building a house in Soundstage 44. Universal Creative came in and said, you need to get out. We're demolishing the building tomorrow, so get out. And then like 11 months later, Transformers: The Ride 3D was there. So this is kind of a concept that I think people were looking forward to seeing back then. To my knowledge, the house back then was very different from what we're getting now. Just we have the Chupacabras as sort of the connective tissue there. This one revolves around a village that sort of celebrates the Chupacabra, and what they do is they lure in tourists to the village, and we are basically food, blood, because the Chupacabra, the goat sucker as it is, that loves the blood, it feeds off the blood, so we're kind of being chopped up and fed to the Chupacabras to appease them so that the Chupacabras don't turn on the village, which I think is very funny. Like I said, kind of really looking forward to see what they do here, just because, as a person who, I still am, but when I was younger, I was very much into paranormal stuff, especially when it came to like cryptids. Horror Nights doesn't really do cryptids a whole lot. So of course we had Yeti a couple years ago. And then we had the Swamp Yeti in Slaughter Cinema. And now we have the Chupacabra. So they're kind of, this notion of bringing cryptids into the event, I think is very cool, especially something like the Chupacabra, because the Chupacabra, has its origins and sort of, of course in the Latin flair, Puerto Rico, Mexico, and living in South Florida when I was younger too, and kind of being into the Chupacabra, that sort of sightings and stuff like that were very prominent down there, believe it or not, of the Chupacabra. I used to scare my sister with it too when we were younger, when we lived in South Florida. So I'm excited to see what they do here. I like the whole tourist vibe that we're being lured as tourists into this village to sort of be used as so that we could be chopped up and fed to the Chupacabras. I think that's a very interesting take on it, as opposed to just straight up like, hey, here's Chupacabras. So that's number 6, Fiesta de Chupacabras. Coming in at number 5 is going to be Bugs Eaten Alive. Again, when I did my sort of a mock event last year, I had the Brood, which was the scare zone over there in Central Park that revolved around the scientists studying bugs, or I should say unearthing bugs in the rainforest and then them being turned into bugs. This one has kind of a 50s sci-fi feel to it a little bit. It's set in the 50s, and it revolves around this company that has this chemical. We're at like this sort of convention, BuzzCon, I think is what they called it in the podcast, that has like this liquid, I guess, this spray that sort of turns the bugs into mutants, and throughout the course of the house, they kind of get bigger and more monstrous and attack you and stuff like that. Now, according to the podcast, this is the house that they're most looking forward to seeing people run out of, because fear of bugs is kind of very common. A lot of people have fears of bugs. Bugs don't really kind of bother me. I'm more interested in sort of the 50s sort of sci-fi B-movie flair to this than I am about being scared of the bugs itself. Now, when this was sort of rumored months ago, like I said, I knew it was coming, but listening to people's reactions to just the concept of them doing a bug house, I think this is going to be a one that is going to scare a lot of people. That's interesting to me. I am interested to see people's reactions to this because this also is going to be the return of stuff in face or shit in face, SIF as it's called. Little hanging things that, that you can't see that you run into when you're walking through the houses. So this is going to be kind of, I guess, the grand return of stuff in face. Of course, it was removed back in 2020. We didn't really have a whole lot of stuff in face in 2021 because of COVID. So this is going to be kind of the return of that. Which again, I'm more interested in the sort of 50s bug, sci-fi giant mutant bug flavor of this. I kind of love that whole vibe, so I'm really interested to see that more than just kind of, hey, it's bugs. The bugs part doesn't really kind of scare me. I just want to see the aesthetic of what they're doing in here with that whole flavor. So that's number 5. So coming in at number 4 is going to be Hellblock Horror. Now, those who know, we lost an IP house this year, and this is the replacement for that house. This one kind of has a very cabin in the woods feel without the cabin. More specifically, the underground sort of layer where they're storing all the monsters. Based on the podcast, this is pretty much going to be like a prison where all of your nightmarish monsters are stored. So vampires, scarecrows, zombies. They didn't specifically mention werewolves, but I'm banking on werewolves in this house because there's a huge lack of werewolves this year, and it pisses me off. But this is going to be, where they're all stored and they break loose and break free and run amok, and it's just complete chaos. I love this concept. Specifically when it comes to like cabin in the woods. The movie itself, like that moment where it's revealed that this cabin is just a front and they have all these creatures, like the entire span of nightmares being stored in this facility, and that moment where they break free, that where they release all the creatures and everything is run amok. That is one of the best moments I think of a horror movie in quite a long time. It's all this stuff culminating in that one moment where they break free and they run amok. I want to experience that on a wider level, and the idea of that being expanded to a whole house really gets my juices flowing, man. I want to see all those things. I want to see the chaos. I want to see whatever creatures that they have in there. They did mention that there might be some Horror Nights creatures in there as well. So maybe we'll get some icons running around in there. Maybe Yeti, who knows? Maybe other things, other past Horror Nights creatures that we've seen at the event also running around in here. That gets me excited. And I know it's a last minute replacement, so that also kind of piques my curiosity because they didn't have a whole lot of turnaround time to sort of do this, but the concept is simple but focused, which I kind of like. It's not like something, like even like with The Purge, when The Purge replaced Scream. The Purge was a simple concept, but it also seemed a little bit more chaotic because, there was a lot more visual reminders in there of what Scream was supposed to be. This one, because, people who know what the house was supposed to be, but I don't think we know exactly what we hadn't seen the IP, so we don't exactly know what was supposed to be or not. So that kind of takes it away a little bit, where you don't have that expectation going into. People who know what the IP was, but we don't know what the aesthetics of that IP actually were because we didn't see the film. So or the what it was. So that kind of is that veil is not there. So it just has this air of, okay, well, we know it was supposed to be something else, and they're kind of using whatever they couldn't use, and just rebranded everything into this Hellblock Horror House. So that that kind of gets me excited. And like I said, I love the concept of just all these things kind of running amok. All your nightmares running amok inside this, that were being prisoned in this prison that have been unleashed upon us. So that is number 4. Coming in at number 3 is going to be Halloween. Now I've said it in the announcement video. Halloween is one of my favorite houses that Horror Nights has ever done, and I really want to see this. What it looks like getting upgraded into a soundstage house. I've heard a lot of things about what this upgraded Halloween house looks like in a soundstage, and I cannot wait. That's all I'm going to say about that. Coming in at number 2 is going to be Dead Man's Pier, Winter's Wake. Obviously based around Dead Man's Wharf, which is funny because in the podcast, they made mention that this is a house based on that scare zone. Although the scare zone is Dead Man's Wharf, not Dead Man's Pier. I think that threw a lot of people off when we had that leak back a couple of weeks ago. It is called Dead Man's Pier, so that's a thing. But based around Dead Man's Wharf that we had in the scare zone a couple years ago, this one is set in New England in the winter. It kind of has a mixture for me of John Carpenter's The Fog, obviously, which was the obvious inspiration for Dead Man's Wharf, as well as the name of the ship kind of escapes me at the moment, but that Shackleton ship that was up in Canada. I think AMC did a show. What was it called? The Terror. Kind of has sort of a mixture of those two vibes to it, using the John Carpenter Dead Man's Wharf vibe. They made mention in the podcast about people were kind of digging on the aesthetic to this. This is why this is so high for me. I've heard a lot about the aesthetic in this house, and I cannot wait. I cannot wait to see what this looks like in person, based around what I've heard. And I liked the Dead Man's Wharf scare zone back in was it 2017? Was that the year? 2017, or was it 16? One of those 2 years. I loved it back then. Although it was kind of a nightmare to walk through because of the sort of bottleneck that happens over there in San Francisco these days. I like I said, I've heard a lot about what this looks like inside, and I just can't wait to see it. There might be a little bit of Winter's Night vibes in there too, with the whole sort of haunting aspect of this sort of feel. I just can't wait. I can't wait to see what this thing looks like in person. So coming in at number 1, the only one left, Universal Monsters Legends Collide. This is another one I've heard a lot about what this house looks like. And take away my enthusiasm for the Universal Monsters at the event for a minute. What I've heard about what this looks like inside, I just, if it was not the Universal Monsters, I'd be excited about it. It would be my number 1 anyway. So, it is what it is. So I talked about the Universal Classic Monsters before, talked about them ad nauseum. I love the Universal Classic Monsters. I love when they use them. I am super excited that the Wolfman is going to be featured in this house. I love the Wolfman. It's my favorite Universal Classic Monsters film. And I also like the sort of the interconnectivity that we're doing with the Universal Classic Monsters here, the Universal Classic Monsters house in Hollywood, and the one overseas, where they all kind of they're all like sequels to each other or continuations of the stories. I think it's a very unique idea, a unique concept that we really haven't seen before. But I love the Universal Classic Monsters. So anytime that they are featured, it is going to be my number 1. This one, I'm not going to lie, I struggled a lot with this year with Dead Man's Wharf, and a couple of the other original properties. They were competing a lot with the Universal Classic Monsters this year, but the more I heard about the look of the Universal Monsters Legends Collide house, I had to put it number 1. I'm super excited for this house. I cannot wait to experience it. So let's move on. That's all the houses. Let's move on to the scare zones. Not going to dwell on these too much. We have coming in at number 5, Horrors of Halloween. This is the one that's going to feature the Pumpkin Lord from last year's Wicked Growth. According to the podcast, we're going to see the Pumpkin Lord in this house as well. Apparently he's become super powerful because of everyone's, everyone being enamored with him last year. And although he's not super connected to the scare zones, there are going to be elements that supposedly he has brought forth, a little bit like the Iniquitous back in 2012, where there can be elements of different scare zones that he kind of has brought forth himself, which I think is interesting. This one, the last couple of years, the scare zones up in Production Central, haven't really been anything to write home about. What we currently can see now in Production Central, the pumpkins that we had in the entrance to Wicked Growth, and we've seen over the years, of course, in Central Park, have made an appearance that are littered amongst the rafters there, including Little Boo, who's everywhere this year. I just this one. The Pumpkin Lord. And the Little Boo aspect to this year, I just don't really care all that much. So, it is what it is. The scare zones this year, I think, are the strongest, are potentially the strongest, I should say, that we've had in quite some time. There's a lot of room to play this year, obviously, because they don't have the parade to deal with. So they can add a lot more stuff, a lot more, props and set pieces. And with, people sort of not caring anymore about COVID, they can do a lot more stuff on the ground, or it looks like that's what they're going to go for this year. Pumpkin Lord just doesn't, I won't say I'm not excited for it. I am excited for it, but it's just not enough for me. I'll leave it at that. Not enough for me to get excited for the scare zone. Number 4, we're going to move on. Number 4, it's going to be Graveyard Deadly Unrest. This is the one, of course, that's over in Hollywood. It is a graveyard. It is what it is. It's graveyard. Number 3, Conjuring the Dark. Again, witches. We have witches over in San Francisco. Now this one, when the podcast, they talked a little bit about how this is kind of like their twist on their own origin story for Halloween itself, obviously with the runes and the sort of more Celtic nature of it. These druids or witches or whatever, they sort of conjure up these creatures and basically create Halloween. So what I assume, based on what they already have over there now, they got the cauldron there and the door. I assume that they're going to be conjuring up these creatures, and they're going to be coming through coming through the door. They mentioned things about portals, so I assume that that's kind of what's going to happen here. It's witches, it's Coven, it's over in San Francisco. Again, more witches. I had witches last year. All right, so coming in at number 2 is going to be Scarecrow Cursed Soil. Now this one's kind of like the pseudo sequel to Scarecrow the Reaping. They did mention about a barn. We're actually walking into a barn. They were kind of excited because they were sort of teasing the fact that if you were too scared to go into the houses, that this is going to be the closest you're going to get in a scare zone to actually going into a house, which I find hilarious. I kind of like the whole idea of there being, and scarecrows innately anyway are kind of scary, and again, tying into that whole notion of sort of more traditional Halloween. We have witches. We have even though they're more like druid witches over there in Conjure the Dark, and then we have the pumpkins and the Pumpkin Lord and that whole thing over there in Production Central. And then in Hollywood we have the cemetery. It kind of feeds into that whole sort of vibe of traditional Halloween, which I kind of dig. And based on the aesthetics that I've heard in what they're going to do in here, kind of has me more excited than some of the other scare zones that are here. I do kind of love the idea that it's a sequel to Scarecrow the Reaping as well. Just the idea that we're going to be walking to the barn. I can't wait. Whatever they put over there in the next couple of weeks, I can't wait to see what that looks like. So Scarecrow Cursed Soil coming in at number 2. So coming in at number 1 has to be Sweet Revenge, because just what they're putting over there, what we've already seen over there in that scare zone, I think just looks incredible. I think the jury is still out on whether or not this is actually set in Cary, Ohio. We know it's set in the 50s, at least based on the podcast. And this is going to be more akin to trick-or-treating. So again, feeding into that whole traditional Halloween vibe. This is trick-or-treaters. So, and the idea is that this Major Sweets character, there's like this celebration of Halloween itself. There's a parade. We're going to have parade floats in here. I've been hearing and seeing these parade floats for a while now. It's going to be, it's a parade. It's a parade, a Halloween parade, celebrating Halloween. Of course, things run amok. The town has outsourced, this company, this Major Sweets candy company, to sort of provide the candy for the kids and for the celebration of Halloween. The candy is cursed. It's got these. It turns the kids into like bloodthirsty monsters. Not in the literal sense, but they kill people. They go crazy. They run amok. They kill people based on the candy that the kids are eating. So I just the psychoscarapy thing that they had a couple years ago, I thought was a very cool idea. This one seems to have taken that and sort of run with it a little bit and make it a little bit more in terms of the story that's happening here. This Major Sweets guy is just is ripe for. Kind of reminds me of Snidely Whiplash. Is that the guy from Dudley Do-Right? The sort of the bad guy from Dudley Do-Right. He kind of reminds me of that a little bit. But they're leaning all into this Major Sweets character. So. I think the props in there are really cool, and I love the cohesiveness of the story. It's obvious that they've put a lot of love and attention into this. I'm not saying the other scare zones haven't had attention put into it as well. We just haven't based on what I'm hearing about Scarecrow. I think there's a lot more in there that we haven't seen yet that I think are going to really make people excited. This one just seems to be getting all the love and attention right now. Just everything seems to vibe in here. And I'm very curious to see what this is in its final state. And just based on what we've already seen, my hype level for this is really high up there. So that's number one, Sweet Revenge. So, whew, I rushed through that to try to get this. I'm still over a half an hour, but I rushed through this really quickly. But let's quickly recap. Starting with the houses. So coming in number 10, The Horrors of Blumhouse. Number 9, The Weekend After Hours Nightmare. Number 8, Spirits of the Coven. Number 7, Descendants of Destruction. Number 6, Fiesta de Chupacabras. Number 5, Bugs Eaten Alive. Number 4, Hellblock Horror. Number 3, Halloween. Number 2, Dead Man's Pier, Winter's Wake. And number 1, Universal Monsters Legends Collide. Those are the houses. Scare zones. Number 5, Horrors of Halloween. Number 4, Graveyard Deadly Unrest. Number 3, Conjure the Dark. Number 2, Scarecrow Cursed Soil. Number 1, Sweet Revenge. Those are the hype lists. Everything has been revealed. It is crazy to me to think that Halloween Horror Nights starts so soon from now. They also mentioned stuff about the tribute store this year. You guys, there's going to be a pumpkin patch, cemetery, a witch's cottage, and then one room that ties into the Sweet Revenge scare zone there as well. You're going to be able to buy the cursed candy and stuff like that. So, I don't quite know. I alluded to in the construction video from last week that obviously they were going to keep the facade of the movie theater up for the Horror Nights tribute store. They repainted it. It's Halloween colors or whatever. But I don't quite know how it ties in yet to the Pumpkin Patch Cemetery or the Witch's Cottage or even Sweet Revenge. That's kind of weird to me, but it is what it is. You'd think that they would sort of lean more into the IPs with that, but obviously not. But yeah, so I'm curious about the Sweet Revenge room because they did make mention on the podcast that you're going to be able to buy stuff from the fair, from the Halloween celebration. So including the cursed candy, the candy that turns the kids into murdering monsters. essentially. So that's kind of cool. Same thing as last year. My coverage for Halloween Horror Nights issues can probably be a little bit different. I will be spending a limited amount of time there. I probably won't be spending all my time there when I'm there. We'll go during when it opens. Stay probably leave about like 10, 11 o'clock-ish. Not stay till closing time. Get a couple houses in each time that we go. Just taking in all the sights and sounds. I've had a couple people ask me. I don't know. Last year, I was kind of lucky enough to get invited to the media last year, the media stuff. I have not heard anything. I said this last year, those who have followed me for a long time, I sort of resisted the urge to do media stuff for a long time, just because I feel like if I'm being wined and dined, my opinion about things might be a little tainted. I had a good time last year with the media thing, but I haven't really decided if I am invited this year, if I'm going to do it again. I probably will, but as of right now, I don't know. I have not heard anything. I haven't been sent anything. Nobody has, sent me anything. So, and I haven't heard from other people. I'm assuming that stuff hasn't gone out yet. So, when that does, and if that does, I'll let you know. But if that does happen, and if I do the media thing this year, it'll be the same thing as last year. Or at least more than likely opening night. They'll take us around and we'll do all the stuff or whatever. I just don't know yet. So I haven't heard anything. So there's that. I hope that you guys are excited for Halloween Horror Nights this year as I am. Like I said, I've heard a lot about this stuff this year. This year is a very strong year for content. I think that the elimination of one IP, I think I'm not saying that the IP that was supposed to be here was going to be bad or whatever. I just think that the added, and I'm on record as IPs at the event don't bother me, but in this case, I think the added Hellblock Horror House, I think just upped. It was the icing on the cake for me this year for all the content, because there's a lot of when I say that this stuff, the stuff this year is you guys are not ready for some of the stuff that they have, especially when it comes to the aesthetic of things. Now, I'm on record in the past of saying the aesthetic don't matter, and that's still true. But because for me, Halloween Horror Nights is kind of like everything needs to come together for me to really enjoy a house, and that includes the aesthetics. One thing doesn't really get to me over the other. It's like everything has to flow, everything has to gel, everything has to, that sort of lightning in a bottle as you're walking through houses has to complete the package. And I'm not one to get overly excited just because a house looks good. Everything has to come together. But that being said, this year, the majority of the stuff, you guys are not ready. I'm telling you right now. Oh boy. But anyway, I think that is going to be it for me today, guys. We got through everything. I'm still well over a half an hour. I tried to do things as quickly as possible, but I'm still well over a half an hour. So we're gonna have to call it quits here. So what are you most looking forward to for this year? What are your hype lists? I know there's a lot of fans of The Weeknd out there, so I apologize. The Weeknd is so low on my list. But if you're excited for The Weeknd, that's really cool. More power to you. It is what it is. I love the Universal Classic Monsters more. I can't help it. I'm an old school guy. It is what it is. But what are your hype lists? What are you most looking forward to seeing at Halloween Horror Nights 31? I cannot believe it is here. Halloween Horror Nights 31 is here. It's here, folks. But anyway, that is going to do it for me, guys. As usual, everybody, thanks for watching. And I will talk to you guys next time.